Right, joining me now is CAConservative. It has been way too long.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had you on the show. I think there's just been so much going on, but I've been mainly focused a lot on the start of election season, and I'm just kind of a little bit surprised how little things that recent events have moved the needle.
Everybody's an extremely well-defined quantity. Honestly, I was surprised by how much movement there was occurring
Yeah.
in sort of July-ish.
Yeah, well, Biden was going, gone.
I'm still surprised by that.
You really thought he was going to hang on, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing stories that apparently when Trump was when that had that attempt on his life, apparently for 48 hours, apparently the attempt to get Biden out was dead, and then Trump single-handedly revives it by picking JD Vance.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So look, I just
Which, which I mean, shouldn't really have surprised any of them.
picking JD Vance.
Yeah.
You saw that coming, didn't you?
I mean, it was gonna be somebody crazy regardless.
I really thought he was going to do something smart like pick Glenn Youngkin.
I mean, he would have been my choice, but um, let's just say relying on him to do the option we would choose has not really served as a good bit of
Baron.
logic.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Um, Now, admittedly, most of what I mean, he's obviously a really hard crank. Even if some of the things he has a propensity to talk without really coaching everything very carefully. People who change their opinions really radically have a tendency to do that.
are you talking about Trump
Um,
or Vance?
I mean, Trump doesn't have any opinion. I mean, that he doesn't have anything to change.
Okay, fair enough.
Um, Whereas the rest of it, I mean, a lot of it is, and admittedly, even this latest thing is pretty rough. Um, but mostly talking about the stuff before, a lot of it is just what a lot of people tend to believe, put in the kind of harsh terms that you see in more theoretical debates, which is always the risk of talking about theory, right?
Right.
Um,
I mean,
so
um, so I mean, I just as we're recording this, by the way, there has been some breaking news outside of Mar-a-Lago that I don't know if we should talk about because it's the information's changing so rapidly. I don't know if it would be responsible to speculate at this point.
I honestly just got up. What happened?
Um, there were shots fired outside of Mar-a-Lago. It is unclear whether those shots were intended for Trump or whether it was just some sort of other exchange just outside, or whether, the Secret Service got involved. The information's been changing pretty rapidly. Might want to log on to Twitter to see what's going on. Um, but Yeah, I mean, on the whole, I mean, you probably referenced the whole immigrants are eating dogs story. Truth is, I really haven't been giving like a lot of airtime to this. Just a lot of people have been like making fun of it. The truth is, it's worrying because there were bomb threats and the schools got shut down. So, we joke about this sort of stuff and how ridiculous it is, but we have to remember people are going to get hurt and people, could get hurt because of this.
Well, I mean, that's the goal of stuff like that. So that's nobody, nobody's surprised. If anybody's surprised, they're lying, right?
Yeah.
The point is to be um, aggressive, shall we say? Like these are not nice people we're talking about here.
Yeah. The people who marched in Springfield are like neo-Nazis and Proud Boys. They were and apparently the woman who first posted that Facebook post, claiming the story, is apparently since like, oh my goodness, what have I done?
I mean, if she was surprised by that, she's also an idiot. Like, it's not 2010 anymore, right?
Right. Um, yeah, like take this little tweet from yesterday. Springfield, Ohio's Haitian community wakes up to smashed windows and acid thrown on their cars. So, oy, 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 oy. So I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, the latest story I see here is that they saw somebody with a gun and they shot at him. Those were the shots.
oh
So
yeah, at Mar-a-Lago,
them
yeah,
and them actually doing their job, which is nice.
yeah, um, yeah. So I mean, can people stop shooting guns in Trump's vicinity? Like, do
His
people
best
actually?
warriors,
Yeah. Do people want him to win? Like,
a substantial proportion of people talking about it, talking about him do. They pretend they don't, but they're not being particularly honest with that.
yeah, that's for sure. Just, I really wish, like, this people often joke like, oh, every election is the most important election of our lifetimes. This one feels like it. I don't know. It just does.
Maybe I'm really bored by it already.
You're bored by it. Like, honestly, like, I am looking forward to it being over because this is just a rough election to live through right now. I kind of hoping it's over. We got 7 weeks to go, and then, however it goes, I'll be like, good, it's over. And you know, I do believe, however, um, that were Nikki Haley the nominee, Republicans would be winning this election in a blowout.
It would be easy.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Both sides are determined to make it as competitive as possible.
yeah, like it seems like neither side actually wants to win.
No, they don't. Nobody wants to deal with everything. And even if they win, they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Um Actually, the governor of Ohio has actually the Republican governor of Ohio has been the adult in the room today.
Oh,
Uh
got all that nonsense. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. It looks like from my Twitter feed as of this taping, the shooter is in custody and he's been identified. I actually like the new policy media organizations now have of not releasing the names or faces of shooters.
Yeah. It's irrelevant who they are.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a shame they took him alive.
Um, um, so, I'm just scanning my feed right now, just seeing what else is going on. It's amazing how there's been a lot to talk about, and yet there's not really much to talk about.
Well, I mean, the kind of ironic part is the stuff in Canada is vastly more interesting.
Oh yeah.
I've been so busy the last few months that it took me like 4 days to notice the death of BC United, which was
Oh,
just a tragedy, right?
when
Um,
when's the next election in there?
October, isn't it?
Oh, this October, and they just utterly collapsed. Oh wow. Oh wow. I haven't been following this. On August 28th, 2024, BC United announced the party is suspending its campaign for the October 19th, 2024 election and formally endorsed the BC Conservatives and merged their campaign. Um, with some BCU candidates running for the Conservatives and the rest withdrawing their candidacies. This was after the party had suffered a notable decline in polls and defections of MLAs and other party members to the Conservative. Uh, let's see. I haven't been following this. Okay, looks like the The BC Conservatives are like a discount version of BC United.
I mean, the party's been around for ever. It just hadn't taken off until they threw Roosted out of the party.
Yeah.
But I mean, Falcon's a moron. He's been a moron for a long time.
I mean, for a long time, the BC Liberals were the center right party.
Yeah. But then
Um,
they decided to change the name, and it's only been downhill from there,
yeah.
which is
I,
just great.
well, who's expected to, let me see who's expected to win this coming election.
It's gonna be tight as always.
Let's see here. The polling, oh, they're real, okay. The polling that I've been, oh yeah, the polling is the election's tied right now.
Which the
Uh,
really funny part is my original sort of assumption of who would win was if the NDP and the Greens are above 50%, they would probably win. But in the most recent projections, they've been well above 50% and are still losing. So them dropping out has definitely improved the right's chances.
right.
The
Uh,
Greens are honestly probably going to lose the election for the NDP. Um,
because of the first past the post system.
yeah,
Yeah. By the way, on that topic, is the first past the post system in the UK on life support?
no, it worked just fine.
Okay.
The people get mad at the nationwide vote, and then you look at every constituency, and they're all 44. Somebody is in the 40s, right? The vast majority, anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just tactical voting means that Labor's, what, 33% or whatever, is pretty high, is disproportionately low in a ton of seats that they just didn't run in.
right.
And
And
so
no, actually, what I thought was a shocking result in that election was David Cameron's seat going to the Lib Dems.
that wasn't surprising, wasn't it?
I guess maybe not.
Wasn't it on the flip? Wasn't it one of those more vulnerable areas? But I mean, it's just
Yeah,
when the second party is that low and is so hated by everybody, the tactical vote, like I'm trying to think of another example where this doesn't maybe India on occasion
yeah,
where you tend to see a lot of scattering and so you get really low percentages, but they're kind of low everywhere, and that's not what happened here.
right,
I mean, you see that now that the Tories are dipping back up, Labour loses like 100 seats instantly.
right. What I actually was a
So,
bit of a pleasant surprise was Jeremy Hunt holding his seat and it remaining the case that no chancellor has ever lost.
which I mean, he would not be a good the leadership selection. I haven't actually seen. I saw the
Oh,
first ballot. Who's actually winning the second ballot? Or has the second ballot happened? Oh, it has. So it
all
looks
right. So
like
okay. So who's been eliminated so far? Oh, Patel is out. Was out the first vote. Wow.
that's
So
fine.
let's
She
yeah.
needs
So
to learn how to cover things up better. I've never even heard of Mel Stribe. Tom would be a really good candidate, but he's probably not going to win.
um,
Um,
let me see. Is this the guy that I actually would like Jenrick to win?
Cleverly, I'm just going in order. Um, Honestly, doesn't seem to have a terribly strange record.
So I guess who are the bookies current favorite is? It sounds like it's just based on what I'm seeing, it's gonna come down to either Jenrick versus Badenoch or Jenrick versus Cleaverly.
Which sounds about right. Kemi's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
she's the more like blue Tory candidate from what I'm seeing.
well, she's just been crazy for a long time. I mean, maybe not in a bad way.
Right.
Um,
Let's see what's Cleaverly.
but he seems normal. Honestly, even the first place candidate. Let's see.
Jenrick, the guy I'm hoping wins.
So a big scandal was he approved a housing development when he shouldn't have. Okay, that's not a scandal.
That's actually
Uh,
based.
yeah, that's based. That's easy. So
Um, I one of the disappointments on election night, by the way, was Jeremy Corbyn holding a seat and getting his own squad.
Honestly, they were lucky to keep that at what, 4 or 5?
Yeah. I think that was the only reason why Keir Starmer did not top the current Labor record from 1997. That only didn't happen because of those 5 seats.
A lot of weird results all around. But I mean, they lost basically. I mean, even what's her name? Um, was it Jess Phillips?
I don't think she
One of the,
lost.
one of the one of the all the people who used to be a lot more popular back in the early 2010s. She almost lost. Was it Jess Phillips? Maybe it was somebody else. Um,
But she almost lost to um oh yeah, I remember just Phil.
yeah, I would probably be voting for Jenrick. I mean, even he ate a bunch of fines for speeding on the M1.
Oh boy.
I
That
mean,
probably cost Bush the popular vote.
it's difficult. It's difficult to be more based, I think. He looks pretty generic, but he's talking about how the NHS isn't a religion. I mean, so he's got my vote. Patel is mostly disappointing. She was pretty good maybe a decade ago. Um, but a lot of unnecessary scandals. And there's nothing that annoys me than unnecessary scandals, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, for, so yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, my friend Justin Sexton was really pushing Patel. You follow
I
him on
mean,
Twitter?
no. I mean, she was, as I said, she was quite good, sort of before the Johnson years.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, she's easily the most attractive candidate, but which is what a lot of people obviously go for. But it just there's no point in bringing somebody on who's just gonna have a lot of scandals.
Yeah. So I'm just
She's not a very good liar. That's her one problem.
Patel.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I I I'm just gonna say here I hope it's generic and I'm gonna leave it at that. Uh
I'm sure there's something wrong, according to the Guardian, but um
the Guardian.
he sounds relatively based. Um no,
Um
the much more funny stuff is just coming out of Canada these days.
oh yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
what are the chances that we get a federal election on October 28th of this year?
low. The NDP's not that stupid, especially since tomorrow's by-elections are probably going to be losses for the NDP. I mean, they'll almost certainly lose that one seat in Quebec to the Bloc.
Okay, so
Um,
the one person I'm following on Twitter says the NDP has a 52% chance of holding Elmwood and a 58% chance of holding LaSalle.
that's extremely optimistic. Not
Okay.
with the not with how low. I mean, if they're panicking by unironically attacking the carbon tax, that's like they're, not even close to labor nationally. And especially because a lot or NDP voters tend to be younger anyway and thus don't turn out in by-elections. Like,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
with the
Actually,
block on the rise and then just getting that's still hilarious. I mean both of those seats are very well, at least the Quebec one's special obviously, but the other one is one of those kind of seats like St. Paul's that the Tories are in the like 230s if they're winning it.
yeah. And I mean, well,
And they're in the
the
230s.
Tories are not going to win LaSalle. They're not even in contention there.
Nor should they be. All of them should vote for the block, which I'm pretty sure is the trend I saw.
Yeah, no, no. The conservatives are losing only in Quebec. They're winning everywhere else.
Yeah, and even in Quebec, I think they are still going to get a couple of seats.
I guess
Uh,
the logic I thought about why the Liberals are not going to survive tomorrow's no confidence vote is because polling I'm seeing suggests that, well, the NDP is going to gain seats in the next election. The Bloc is going to gain seats in the next election. So neither of them have any real reason to prop up the Liberals at this point. Hello?
they don't, except for the of just delaying the pain. I mean, even just today's Abacus poll, and honestly, they're a pretty bad pollster, but we're not going to talk about that.
All right. I follow someone on
Um,
Twitter who takes the polls and then models out an election based on the polls.
no, I'm a big fan of both the more professional guy and then that Albanian guy.
I mean, 338 Canada and lean toss up.
No, I mean Canadian polling, and
Oh.
I thought I had the word
Oh, you're
Albanian.
okay. You're not referring to Evan Scrimshaw.
Oh God, no! What a hack! He's been a hack for a long time. Um, I mean, the kind of funny part is almost all the reason I think Canadian polling might be the last of the sort of like non-open Green Party members in that group.
Mm. What
Um,
about Canadian polling?
he's fair, you know.
Fair.
He always gets accused of being biased, which is always a good sign, rather than everybody else who just is biased. I'm trying to remember what the name of this other guy is. I was literally just looking at his stuff. How have I done this? Let's see. I will hunt around until I find it.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
Because even on like following him on like, what was it, the St. Paul's by-election, that was fun.
Right.
That was a fun night.
Oh yeah, I mean, I went to we were going on a trip to Hilton Head the next morning, so I didn't stay up too late. But I woke up the next morning and saw that the Conservatives have won, and actually the person I was following on Twitter predicted that that would happen.
The really funny part is they weren't in the lead until the very end.
Yeah.
Like it was the
Look, yeah,
last bunch of votes that put them over the top. It was literally that, the meme where the blue line is down and then spikes up at the end.
yeah, no, I went to bed thinking that the Liberals had won.
It was quite tight. They're not horribly transparent in the way they report votes,
Yeah.
but it also doesn't take them that long, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. And also, what I heard is that in many provinces they don't report results by poll on the night itself.
Um, they reported the number reported, but not really the by poll, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um,
yeah, although I think Alberta seems to be good about that.
which isn't surprising with a reasonable government. Yeah, real Albanian Pat. I found him.
Anyway, so this guy I'm following who predicted the Conservatives would win I think it was the same guy who predicted the Conservatives would win Toronto St. Paul. Um, I guess he's saying he's giving a very narrow favorite to the NDP in Elmwood, although the Conservatives are at 48% a chance of winning. So it's essentially a toss-up. But he's favoring the NDP more in LaSalle with the Bloc at 34% and the Liberals all the way down at 8%
Of chance to win or of
of
vote?
chance to win. These are odds.
Yeah, yeah, it just depends on what percentage the block wins. Um, so,
Which is notable is, by the way, that this is currently a Liberal held seat. So the
oh yeah,
fact,
it's not a huge Francophile seat, which is it's more just a question of everybody's just collapsed.
yeah, I mean, I just again, I ask myself why continue to prop up the government when the polls show you're going to gain seats.
Because they're not going to gain that many. And they face the only reason the seat projections have looked even somewhat better the last few weeks is that they're doing a little bit better in BC,
The
but
Liberals are, or
the NDP.
oh yeah, the NDP. Yeah, I mean, actually, the polling I'm seeing suggests that Liberals might not even win a single seat west of Toronto.
They're probably gonna win. They might. They're going with the NDP for some of those. What in Manitoba, I think.
Yeah, like actually, I would be very satisfied if the Liberals flipped that northern seat, that the Churchill seat.
Yeah, I assume very indigenous, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Yeah, although Indigenous Canadians have actually trended conservative in some recent elections. Um, Doug Ford gained with Indigenous Canadians in Northern Ontario.
He's such a meme. I don't know how that man is still winning. He's gonna gain seats in the next election. It's like what?
Yeah, actually, I lived in the one riding that flipped.
Eh,
I flipped the other way. The NDP flipped a conservative held seat. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I see here of those most certain to vote, the Tories at 47, the Liberals at 21, the NDP at 19. I mean, that's just a joke, right?
actually, I mean, this we've known this for a while, but the Conservatives are going to win most of Toronto, the city of Toronto.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a massacre. It's not even gonna be close. The kind of funny part is they're flailing around now, and the campaign hasn't even started.
Is every single seat in the GTA like the outer Toronto area going to go conservative? Like, are the Conservatives going to sweep everything in Durham, York, Peel, and Halton?
Should. I mean, if they're sweeping even in the inside,
Yeah,
unless I mean, unless there's some better tactical voting than they've ever seen before.
yeah.
No.
I mean, yeah, Conservatives have tended to do better like in the outer suburbs. Uh, but particularly like Thornhill. I know the people up there that they're pretty Tory. Uh,
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to see. Um, in terms of other elections happening, I mean, actually, I've been wanting to talk about some of the ballot initiatives that are going to be taking place this year. Um, the sources I'm talking to in Florida say that the abortion and marijuana measures are going to easily clear the are going to at least well it might be close, but it'll clear 60%.
The marijuana one probably will. The abortion one probably will as well. Although the higher threshold gives at least a chance, right?
Yeah, although the polling I have seen on both issues, they're routinely in the mid to high 60s.
Which sounds about right.
I would not be surprised if we got calls on those by 8:30.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're
Uh,
probably gonna have almost all the votes in by 8:30, so
yeah. Um, Again, I just based on the people I'm talking to, it sounds like it would be a real shock if either measure failed.
yeah.
Um, Apparently, Utah was going to vote this year on a measure that would have basically nerfed the initiative process, but the courts have ruled that it's illegal and they won't count if you vote for it.
That's good.
Yeah, you like ballot initiatives?
Not really.
All right.
California is probably the only state in which they lead to actually reasonable results. Everywhere else, it's always just kind of wild stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been noting that a number of pro-life, anti-abortion strongholds are expected to fall this year.
Oh yeah.
Not just Florida, but Missouri, South Dakota are all expected to legalize abortion this year.
Surprised even Arkansas might have been close.
Yeah,
But I don't, I think their thing got thrown off the ballot.
yeah. They didn't get a lot of signatures on it, from what I heard.
Not a lot of legitimate ones.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that part, like this part of the U.S., I think is a bit more of a religious population, particularly in some of the like it's funny, like out in the West, they tend to take a more libertarian take on this stuff, but here in the South, they're more conservative and more religious.
Yeah, that's the only thing Florida has going for it is that like the area outside the Jacksonville is going to be very much against that.
I mean,
Or
Florida.
not Jacksonville.
Well,
What am I
actually,
talking about?
Florida is easily the most socially liberal southern state.
It is, but it has still that kind of bent.
Yeah. I would even venture just based on the people I talked to that Florida is more socially liberal than Georgia. Because
Oh, probably.
yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. Um, Georgia doesn't have ballot initiatives. So there's not a real way to test this.
Yeah,
Uh,
which is probably good for states like that not to have ballot initiatives.
yeah, my dad's not the biggest fan of it.
So at
Um,
least tempers things a little bit, but
I like what they do in California, and I also like it when when New York Democrats put measures on the ballot, the voters routinely reject them.
oh yeah, all that redistricting nonsense that all got voted down by a bunch. I mean, they're gonna keep trying it here. It's a way for states to go towards the other side, right, without having to actually vote for the other side.
Yeah, I mean,
Which generally speaking is not a good thing, except here.
yeah.
Only
So
because the legislature is so insane that the only thing stopping them is
is the ballot
this.
initiative process.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
because even like I mean, take and this is kind of an old story. I think this was out a couple months ago. But even take the changes in enrollment after affirmative action was banned. Um,
what a glorious result.
oh yeah, which was purely just like white and Hispanic barely changed, right? It was purely an increase in Asian enrollment.
Mhm.
A group that they were obviously discriminated against, and a group that they would love to do that here, and that they're not allowed to because they keep losing
Oh
by a
yeah,
lot.
I'm fairly convinced that if they try to put that measure on a ballot, oh, besides well now being illegal now, but if it were still legal, it would get massacred in Orange County.
We got a massacre in Orange County in 2020.
Yep.
I mean, the kind of funny part is there's really no force that actually really does much during these, except make the Chamber of Commerce, if that.
Yeah.
Um, and yet the party still can't work.
Right.
Like they still can't. I mean, they
I'm
spent a bunch of time trying to rig the repeal of that original misdemeanor thing from what, a decade ago for theft.
I'm honestly surprised
Um,
that California Democrats can't even get a death penalty abolition measure on the ballot.
they tried it, lost,
It oh,
and a measure to accelerate executions passed at the same time. The death penalty remains popular here.
yeah. Same thing in Oregon, and I
At
still
least
remember that sort of
Oregon and Washington are much more liberal states in that regard.
right.
They don't
And,
really
and
have because it's usually what drives that is the Hispanic parts of LA, right?
the
It's wealthy whites who don't like the death penalty.
yeah.
Wealthy whites are not a majority in this state. They are in Oregon and Washington, right?
Right. So I mean, so you're saying that the Latinos in LA want the death penalty,
Just in general, yeah. I mean, maybe not in LA proper, but
but
in SoCal, shall we say?
yeah,
Imperial County, those kind of places.
right,
Um, you just don't get the Pacific Northwest is cursed with the people it has who don't like that kind of thing.
right.
Which is why obviously
Yeah.
crime is out of
I,
control.
yeah, no, I mean, well, there's not really evidence that crime can be stopped with the death penalty. Like, there's not been really much of an increase in murders. There's been an increase in thefts. The death
Well, It's more
penalty would,
about it's more about sending a message, right? It's not actually about crime, but it's more of that if you oppose the death penalty, you probably want a more progressive criminal justice system, right? Nobody opposes the death penalty, well, except for the ardently religious, I guess, which none of these people are. Oppose it because a life is being taken, right?
Yeah, nothing pro-life
Um,
about that.
it's purely because they don't want to be mean or whatever, and that permeates the rest of their beliefs as well.
Right.
Um, and that's the really dangerous part.
I just think it reeks of big government. A government big enough to kill you is too big.
That's the type of big government I can get behind. Mostly
Right.
because the government is big. If we were talking about, and this applies to a couple of other things as well. If the government was starting out fairly small, it'd be an interesting conversation to have, right? But it's not. And a government that can do all the things that it can should be able to do these other things as well. Because the argument doesn't hold, right? We want small government, but it can do all these other things. I see no reason to be consistent with that. Not when one thing is realistic and one thing is not. Um,
Yeah, it sounds like Oregon would be the next state to abolish the death penalty just based on everything you said. California, look, Wyoming might abolish it before California does.
Wyoming will be a blue state before that happens. Red states are very pro death penalty.
North Dakota doesn't have it. West Virginia doesn't have it. And Iowa doesn't have it.
If they Nobody's re-adding the death penalty, let me put it like that. But if they
Yeah,
already had it,
yeah. The trend, for about 17 years was to abolish it, and that seems to have stalled.
yeah, because there's too many of these cases where you know people do not need to survive. I mean, take even that. What was that one guy who massacred like a church? I think in maybe Georgia or South Carolina or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
Dylan Roof.
Yeah, yeah. Like an obvious use of that. Like nobody's being dissuaded from doing that by the death penalty. On the other hand, you got to die for that. Um, there's no.
Anyway, I'll we're gonna take a break. Time's about to run out. When we come back, we'll continue talking about all this. So stay with us. We'll be right back. And we're
Hello.
and we're back. When we left off, we were talking about the death penalty. I'm wondering, okay, we basically talked about how California, the general population seems to want it more so than in Oregon. But I'm reminded of that story from like 3 years ago where Nevada tried to get rid of it, and the governor like held off his opinion until like the last day.
Sounds about right. I have an article here that in 2016 there were three referendums in California, Nebraska, and Oklahoma, and they all overwhelmingly went for the death penalty. So the vast majority of states that are abolishing it now are not doing so through the initiate process, right?
Yeah, it's just that in Oregon, they have a constitutional amendment seeming to require the death penalty, although that I mean same thing with California kind of as well, but but they've effectively abolished it. There's no one on death row anymore, and they've made it very hard to sentence someone to death now.
Yeah, or even take I think New York still is supposed to have it, but
Oh, the court struck that down like 2 decades ago.
yeah, and they just refuse to bring it back. Um,
I feel like this legislature would vote to repeal it.
Probably. Although they might get vetoed these days, who knows? She's trying to seem more moderate.
Right. Um, Mike Collins is being Mike Collins today.
Just the usual.
Yeah, yeah. He said, quote, I guess the ABC hit job wasn't effective enough.
Eh,
Just why? Why? Uh, Anything else going on in the world that's of note, or has it been relatively quiet, relatively speaking?
I mean, it has been quiet, but nothing horribly notable. Um, Mexico's about to get a lot worse. Hopefully things in South Africa start to turn around. New government.
I was pleasantly surprised at the coalition they ended up striking.
It was the only option.
I really thought they were going to go MKEFF.
The that bunch is so crazy. There's nothing. It wouldn't work. I don't think they've ever actually cooperated, even on a provincial level. Um, so
Um, all right, we're
I like how
still,
they made some guy from Freedom Front Plus the Minister of Correctional Services. That's funny. There's
yeah.
really not a lot of surprises here, or the leader of DA being the Minister of Agriculture.
This is, I mean, I'm very curious to know how the next election's in like 5 years, but I'm curious to know if the ANC is going to drop even further.
Almost. Well, maybe. I mean, I assume. I mean, Jacob Zuma will be in prison eventually, right? Um,
Right.
so he will probably lose support for that. I mean, the funny part is the right only did slightly better this time around,
Mhm.
like as opposed to I mean, it was like 1 or 2 points, if that. There was just a lot of sort of coalition splits.
Right. Okay, according to Pierce Morgan, the Trump gunman in police custody is a white male in his mid 60s.
I mean, he may not even have been armed. Um, so good for another non-story, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, which we
Uh,
need more of them.
People are speculating whether this was staged. I don't think this was staged.
No, the world doesn't work like that. I mean, even the guy in Pennsylvania was such a meme that it was like
Like
just the
Corey
usual
Comparator,
craziness. No, no, the shooter.
oh, the shooter. Oh yeah. Um, um, anyway, what's going on in Ukraine lately?
Mostly not good things. I mean,
Yeah.
Kursk was fun, but
What are the chances that Ukraine will actually be able to hold Kursk?
high. They don't seem to be making much of an attempt to take it back. And that area sort of to the west of what they've taken is still cut off from supply.
Yeah.
Um,
Although for I mean things I've been watching lately is that you Russia seems to be really pushing towards they've taken New York. They're really pushing towards Chasiv Yar and Touretsk with the goal of taking Pokrovsk. And it sounds like if Pokrovsk falls, it'll lead to a general rout in the rest of the Donbass.
I mean, those cities have fought for a long time. I mean, even though the one city who I'm not even gonna try to pronounce, big cities are much harder to take with this type of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, they need the units. So hopefully with the end of offensives in Kursk, those units can be sent to the south. Um, with only sort of the defensive units holding it, since it is valuable. It was good for turning the sort of mood around, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the yeah, which is fine, right? But yeah, let's just say the administration is trying everything it can do to avoid winning this war. It's almost impressive.
The Biden Harris administration or the
Yeah,
Zelensky. Yeah.
yeah. They don't want to win. They don't like winning.
Well, Trump would do the I mean JD Vance has like indicated that he's basically on the Vivek opinion when it comes to the war.
Almost definitely. It's almost tempting to say they might be better just because the sort of pacifist running everything I think is almost more harmful.
Hmm.
Um, because it doesn't they don't do anything. I mean, if if the other guy manages to make Europe step up, which they will instantly start to do, um, maybe, but there's not a ton of hope. There's literally no serious people around.
Yeah.
They're either insane or they're like Sullivan. Easily the worst person in this administration,
Uh,
which is a pretty hefty competition these days, but he wins.
yeah. Um, just I'm trying to stay trying to stay positive. It seems like Ukraine's on the back foot in the East right now.
No, mostly because they are. I guess I mean the only good thing is it doesn't really matter. Um, but only in the sense that nothing really matters.
Yeah. Um, okay, I'm trying to okay, this is the Wikipedia article for the Kursk invasion. Um, I
Oh,
honestly I
the
hope
former
Kursk
president of Peru died. That's interesting.
oh, wow.
Former, we'll say, dictator. Interesting.
I'm very surprised that democracy is somehow still holding up in Peru.
Everybody has an incentive to allow it to survive.
I actually find it fascinating that in places like South Africa, Peru, Bolivia, the rurals are still very leftist.
Why is that surprising?
I don't know. I'm used to the rurals being very right wing these days.
It's a Western thing. It's not true basically anywhere else.
Yeah. Um,
I mean, you take a look at India, right? I mean, the government almost lost because of losses in rural areas, right?
yeah. The Congress gained in the rural areas. That was where they gained.
I mean, they gained everywhere, but generally, yeah, actually, just out of
I would have thought that
curiosity.
maybe Delhi would have been a Congress gain area.
Now, what is it? The AAP is who spends most of their time running here. Yeah, I mean, they got the SP did very well in the north in the rural areas. Um, that was basically the big losses. Um, it's a very tight race, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Or fortunately, perhaps it keeps Modi from being too insane.
perhaps.
Um, so always some positive things there, am I right?
Exactly. And this might be a good time to wrap it up. Should probably get ready for my significant other to come home.
Ooh,
Uh, so
how exciting.
yes, very exciting. Um, where can people follow you?
On Twitter. Although it's not as if I post a ton of things there these days.
All
Been very
right.
busy lately.
Yeah, me too. But I guess I try to podcast whenever I can. But yeah, my main duties right now have been to my family.
I've been working way too hard lately, so
Yeah, same with me, honestly. But really great to catch up with you.
no, thank you.